नमस्कार। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की चीन यात्रा का आज दूसरा दिन है और फिलहाल इस दौरे को लेकर प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रही है। आपको सीधा लिए चलते हैं।
Welcome to this special briefing from Wuhan on the informal summit between Prime Minister and President Xi. Since the arrival of PM to Wuhan on 27th early morning, the two leaders had several rounds of meetings. And to brief us on the visit as well as the discussions that took place, I have with me the Foreign Secretary of India. I also have our Ambassador to China and the Joint Secretary East Asia, Sri Pranay Banda. Without any further delay, sir, I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you, Ravish. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for waiting. As you know, Prime Minister is in Wuhan for the informal summit with President Xi Jinping. I believe some details of the program have already been shared with you. In total, there were 6 events. 4 of them were one-to-one meetings. And yesterday evening, there was also a restricted meeting, which in keeping with the nature of the informal summit, went beyond its budgeted time. As I had said earlier in Delhi, there are no agreements or announcements, but both sides will do their briefings as to the major results of this informal summit. The basic objective of the informal summit was to have a discussion on the overarching issues of bilateral and global importance. It was also intended to elaborate on the respective visions and priorities of both leaders for national development in the context of the current situation. The two leaders therefore agreed that India and China, as major powers with strategic and decisional autonomy, will pursue peaceful, stable, and balanced relations. And such a relationship will be a positive factor for stability amidst the current global uncertainties. The development of a sound bilateral relationship between two countries which have about 40% of the world's population would also be conducive for the development and prosperity of the region. This was the view of the two leaders. And to that end, they decided it was important to strengthen the closer development partnership between the two countries. The developments, as I mentioned earlier, were reviewed from the strategic and long-term perspective. A number of areas where we have convergence were identified, and it was decided that through the established mechanisms, we have about 20 such mechanisms at various levels. Through such established mechanisms, we would try now to build on these convergences. And it was also the view of both leaders that the two countries have the maturity and the wisdom to handle all our differences through peaceful discussion within the context of this overall relationship, and bearing in mind that we will respect each other's sensitivities, concerns, and aspirations. On the issue of the India-China boundary question, the two leaders endorsed the work of the special representatives in their efforts to find a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable settlement. And the two leaders also underscored that in the meantime, it is important to maintain peace and tranquility in all areas of the India-China border region. And to this end, the two leaders decided that they would issue strategic guidance to their respective militaries to strengthen communication, to build trust and understanding, to implement various confidence-building measures which have already been agreed upon by the two sides, and to strengthen existing institutional mechanisms to prevent and manage situations in the border areas. Bilateral trade and investment formed an important part of the discussion. The two leaders underlined that trade should be balanced, it should be sustainable, and that we should take advantage of the complementarities between the two economies to enhance our trade and investment. In that context, the Prime Minister also mentioned the importance of balancing trade and spoke of the possibilities of agricultural exports and pharmaceutical exports to China. And it was decided that through the existing institutional mechanisms, both sides would continue to discuss matters relating to trade and investment. One of the other areas on which some discussion took place was on how to promote greater cultural and people-to-people exchanges. Both leaders felt that while these exchanges were going on, these were fragmented to some extent, and that it was important that the trust and understanding between the two governments, between the two leaders, should also find their way to the people, to public, to public opinion. And in that context, I believe yesterday the Prime Minister's proposal or suggestion to President Xi Jinping, which he agreed upon, in which he spoke of a number of initiatives that both sides could take, which is captured in the word strength, was something on which both sides found common ground. Essentially, I would like to repeat the proposals included moving ahead in trying to find ways to collaborate in the areas of spirituality, trade, technology, tradition, in terms of building relationships, in terms of entertainment, including films. And here, President Xi Jinping actually said that he had seen a number of Indian films, both Bollywood and regional, and that it would be a good idea to expand this, that more Indian films should come to China, more Chinese films should go to India. They agreed that nature preservation, environmental preservation is important. President Xi Jinping over dinner shared his experience in terms of the preservation of the Yangtze River. He said that one of the objectives with which he had come to Wuhan also was to look at how that program was going, and of course our Prime Minister then shared his own experiences on the question of the cleaning of the Ganga River. They discussed how to promote sports and games. The Prime Minister mentioned that we look forward to learning from China in this regard, as India's various sportsmen and women were improving their performance in international and regional meets. Tourism was also discussed, including how to strengthen tourism on the Buddhist circuit, and holistic health was discussed in terms of strengthening collaboration to ensure that the traditional systems of medicine in both countries was given greater prominence in international healthcare. The two leaders also then had some discussion on regional and global issues. And what they essentially agreed was there was a need to strengthen strategic communication between the two countries through greater consultation on such matters. And they felt that this sort of a communication, this sort of a discussion would have a positive influence on enhancing mutual understanding, and it would contribute to regional and global stability. Of course, each of the two leaders agreed that the other had made important contributions to global peace and prosperity, that both countries would focus on acting as engines for global growth, and that in the purpose of growing economically, we were in fact helping the rest of the world to grow. They also reiterated the importance of building an open, multipolar, pluralist, and participatory global economic order. They agreed that their own development, that is the development of India and China, would contribute to the elimination of poverty and inequality in the world. And they spoke of their respective efforts to contribute to regional and global economic development. A number of global challenges were discussed. These included climate change, sustainable development, and food security. And they also discussed the importance of reforming multilateral financial and political institutions to make them more representative and responsive to the needs of the developing countries. More importantly, they discussed ways in which India and China could cooperate, could join hands in offering innovative or sustainable solutions to some of the challenges faced by humankind in the 21st century. Both leaders felt that we have both capacities and experience in handling these issues because we are large countries with substantial populations. And they discussed how we could join hands together, for instance, in global health care, in combating disease, in disaster risk reduction and mitigation, in addressing climate change, in ushering digital empowerment. These were issues which were common to both countries, and it was felt that we could bring our respective experiences to bear to see if we could come together to assist others, to show the way to others in this regard. And the two leaders therefore agreed that we could pool our expertise and resources in such areas and look at the possibility of creating global networks which would benefit humankind on how to address such challenges. Of course, Prime Minister and the President of China also recognized the common threat posed by terrorism. Both reiterated their strong condemnation of and resolute opposition to terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, and both committed to cooperate further in counterterrorism. At the end of the meetings, both leaders also felt that this informal summit has resulted in direct, free and candid exchange of views. It was a very forward-looking dialogue. Both leaders agreed that they would maintain strategic communication about the perspectives, priorities and visions of the respective countries, and that they would continue to discuss how to forge a common understanding of the future direction of India-China relations. So, in a nutshell, these were the discussions between the two leaders, and I am sure you have seen the visuals this morning of the informal one-to-one meetings which were held at the East Lake and on the boating on the East Lake itself. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. We will be issuing a press release before Prime Minister's departure that we will be posting it on our website. We have to leave for the airport very soon, but we have time for a few questions. Sachin and Naveen.
Sir, this is Sachin from the Times of India. Could you expand a little more on what were the key takeaways for India from the summit in terms of India getting China to address some of its key concerns, be it the issue of terrorism or trade deficit? I know this wasn't meant to be about specifics, but did the Indian Prime Minister sort of, even in passing, mention the issue of NSG or Masood Azhar or even CPEC? Thanks.
Sir, you said that both leaders will be giving strategic guidance to the militaries. Can you expand on that? What kind of will they ask militaries to refrain from conflict? And can you throw some light on it, sir?
Thank you. Sachin, I believe you've answered your own question when you said that the two leaders were not going to get into the specifics of such issues. But when you talk of takeaways, I think the important takeaways here are that this kind of arrangement between the two leaders of informal meetings where they discuss issues of common interest will continue. I believe you heard the Chinese president yesterday when he said that he looked forward to maintaining such contact subsequently. And the other important takeaway is the agreement between them that greater strategic communication at the leadership level and at the level of the two governments allows for a free and frank discussion on all matters of interest. I believe to that extent these are important takeaways. In addition, of course, both leaders also decided that the existing mechanisms would be improved, they would be made more effective, they would be made more efficient, and through these mechanisms we would address some of the issues that you have raised. So far as so far as Naveen's question is concerned, I think I dwelt at some length on that, and I would like to repeat. I think the two leaders underscored the importance of maintaining peace and tranquility in the India-China border regions. They decided that they will strengthen communication between the two militaries in order to build trust and understanding, that a number of confidence-building measures already agreed upon the two sides will be implemented, and the information sharing arrangements will be improved to prevent and manage situations along the border areas. I believe that in a sense this should more or less make it clear that both sides agreed that it was important to ensure that greater efforts are made to maintain peace and tranquility, and there's a commitment on both sides to suggest to the two militaries that they need to to ensure that the existing confidence building measures in place and the existing institutions and mechanisms in place are utilized more effectively.
There was no specific mention of MLC or...
FS has already answered that question. Maha and then Subhajit.
So Maha Siddiqui from CNN News 18. So was there any reference, even if obliquely, to the Belt and Road Initiative? Because that falls in President Xi's long-term perspective of connectivity in the region.
Subhajit.
Shubhajit from Indian Express. So has the Prime Minister got a specific assurance that a Doklam-like incident will not happen this year or the next year? Number one. Number two, both countries have been competing with each other in the neighborhood and in the region and the world, in different parts of the world. Has there been an understanding that both will not against each other's interests?
Maha, so far as your question is concerned, I think both sides spoke of their respective efforts to contribute to regional and global economic development. Shubhajit, I think I've made clear what was discussed with relation to the boundary question and to maintaining peace and tranquility. I have nothing further to add to that. As far as what you mentioned about competing in the region is concerned, the two leaders were very clear that we have converging interests. We have our respective visions of domestic and foreign policy, that we will work together and use strategic communication in order to ensure that we are able to improve the situation regionally, internationally, and wherever we can work together, we would like to work together. I believe the key point I mentioned was that we identified a number of areas of convergence. The leaderships do not go into minute details. It is now for the existing mechanisms that we have to go into those details and to work out how and where we can collaborate.
We will take the last set of two questions.
Yeah, I'm Atul from The Hindu. Sir, regarding the border, do we understand that the focus remains on the management of the border and peace and tranquility? Or is there a strategic direction being given to resolve the border through new formulations under the SR mechanism or otherwise? Thank you.
Going by the caveat that, no specific issues, this is Verma from PTI. Do you think that this will have a very different or big impact on the future course of India-China relations, considering that now the two leaders have agreed an informal format for summit diplomacy?
Atul, while one of the areas of focus was to maintain peace and tranquility, I think the work of the special representatives on finding a solution to the boundary question will continue unabated. As you perhaps are aware, there is a new special representative on the Chinese side. State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi will be the special representative. I think that work will continue, and in due course, I presume, there will be a meeting between the special representatives on that issue. The parameters are more or less established already in the agreement we have in 2005, and it is on those parameters that the discussion will take place on the second stage, which is what we are undergoing, the process we are undergoing at the moment. Mr. Verma, I think that it is important to bear in mind that this is a new kind of diplomatic arrangement between the two countries. That President Xi Jinping has not received another foreign leader outside the capital, that both leaders are trying to find new ways to communicate with each other, and I have no doubt that this will have a positive impact on India-China relations, on moving ahead on a number of issues, and it is now up to the mechanisms established by two sides to deal with individual issues and to take them forward. I think one last question.
Pranay and Abhishek.
फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी में प्रणय उपाध्याय हूं एबीपी न्यूज से। आपने पॉइंट ऑफ कन्वर्जेंस की बात की। क्या इस बैठक के बाद आप आश्वस्त हैं कि आतंकवाद के मुद्दे के ऊपर जब अगली बार बातचीत होगी या आगे जो भी इंटरनेशनल मैकेनिज्म पे आएगा भारत मसूद अजहर की बैनिंग को लेके या और जो कदम होंगे उसमें चीन अब विरोध नहीं करेगा? क्या अब इस बैठक के बाद आप कॉन्फिडेंट हैं, ये कहने की स्थिति में है कि अब चीन इस चीज़ का विरोध नहीं करेगा?
Abhishek?
Sir, Abhishek from Republic. My question is, sir, as a build-up to the summit, there was a momentum going, a lot of strong, good vibes from the Chinese side in the foreign ministry as well as the top leadership. What has changed in the last 3-4 months post-Doklam that led to these strong vibes?
प्रणय, जहाँ तक आतंकवाद का मुद्दा है, एक जनरल लेवल पे डिस्कशन हुआ है, क्योंकि जैसे मैंने कहा स्पेसिफिक मुद्दों पे इस स्तर पे बातचीत नहीं होती है। तो और वहाँ दोनों भारत और चीन दोनों का रुख है कि इस मुद्दे पे there will be no tolerance for terrorism, and that it is in the interest of both countries to collaborate. As I said, beyond that, it is a matter for discussion, and it is a continuing discussion between the two countries on how to collaborate in this area. As far as Abhishek's question is concerned, I believe that the BRICS summit at Xiamen was important in that from that period onwards, it was agreed between the two sides that we will find ways to work together to converge our interests, to improve the atmosphere of the relationship. And while I agree with you that there have been positive vibes, as you call it, from the Chinese side, I'm sure you'll agree there have been equally positive vibes from the Indian side. I think there has been a great effort on both sides to ensure that the relationship is positive, and I think that the informal summit, you have seen the visuals, suggests that our leaders have a certain comfort level. They have a certain comfort in being able to communicate frankly, candidly, and we are confident that as we move ahead, we will be able to ensure that the mechanisms that are in place work to build on those convergences.
No, I think, we will miss our carcade if we take any more questions. No, after this maybe. Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, sir. And thank you, Ambassador, Joint Secretary, for speaking to the media.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.